Welcome to the world of sci-fi stories, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel. Enjoy the listening. Warning: a human warship has breached the galactic perimeter. The Empire emerges. The galaxy had known peace for centuries, but peace was a fragile thing. It never lasted forever. On the edge of the Orion expanse, a sector untouched by war, a strange event shattered the silence of space. A massive terror appeared in the void, an unnatural swirling rift that crackled with energy. It was not a worm, bee, nor a natural anomaly. It was something else, something created. Captain Deuce Kane stood on the bridge of the U.S. Vanguard, a Terran patrol ship. Stationed near the sector, his eyes narrowed as he stared at the growing rift on the main view screen. Every instinct in his body screamed danger. "Commander Holt," he said, turning to his second-in-command. "Tell me that's not what I think it is." Commander Sarah Holt, a veteran officer with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind, scanned the data on her console. Her fingers trembled slightly. "It's a breach, sir," she confirmed. "Not a natural one. Someone or something opened it from the other side." A hush fell over the bridge crew. They had all heard the old legends, the stories of the long-forgotten Syrian Empire, a civilization so powerful, it was said, they could tear holes in space itself, an empire that vanished without a trace. Thousands of years ago. Darius exhaled slowly. "Are we picking up any signals?" "Yes, Sir." Lieutenant Vega, the communications officer, replied. "Multiple contacts emerging from the bridge. They're massive." The ship's sensors screamed as colossal warships began to materialize from the rift. Each vessel was unlike anything the Terran fleet had encountered before. Sleek, black, and adorned with glowing red runes, their hulls pulsed with an eerie ancient energy. And then the transmission came. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the Vanguard's comm system. "The Zarian Empire returns. Surrender or be erased." Darius clenched his fists. "Raid alert. All hands to battle stations." The silence of the Orion expanse had been broken. War was coming. The first strike alarms blared across the U.S. Vanguard as the Zarian warships emerged in full force. The rift behind them pulsed like a living wound in space, feeding their fleet with energy from the unknown. Captain Darius Kane gripped the edge of his command chair. "Status report: 6 enemy vessels detected." Commander Holt called out. "They're holding formation. No immediate signs of hostility, but their weapons are online." Darius didn't trust it. He had seen enough in his years as a captain to know that hesitation meant death. "Open a channel," he ordered. The deep mechanical voice returned, filling the bridge with an overwhelming presence. "We are the Zarian Empire. This galaxy is ours. You will surrender." Darius exchanged a glance with Commander Holt. The Zarian weren't asking for negotiations. This was an ultimatum. "We do not recognize your claim," Darius replied, keeping his voice steady. "This is Terran space. Any act of aggression will be seen as an act of war." For a moment's silence. Then, without warning, the Zarian fleet fired a storm of energy beams, slammed into the Vanguard, shaking the ship violently. Sparks flew across the bridge as console screens flickered. "Shields at 60%, Holt shouted. "Their weapons are, Captain. They're draining our energy." Darius cursed. The Zarian weren't just powerful, they were designed for war. "Return fire," he ordered. The Vanguard's pulse cannons roared to life, launching a barrage of plasma rounds at the enemy ships. But the Zarian vessels didn't flinch. Their hulls absorbed the impact like a sponge soaking water. "They're adapting." Vega called out. "Our weapons are losing effectiveness." Darius clenched his jaw. This wasn't a battle. They were being hunted. "We need to fall back," Holt urged. "We can't fight them like this." Darius hated retreating, but she was right. They had to warn the fleet. "Set a course for Terran command," he ordered. "Maximum speed." The Vanguard's engines roared to life, but as the ship turned, a massive Zarian warship moved to block their escape. A new voice crackled over the sea, as calm yet filled with menace. "You cannot run. You cannot hide. The age of turn is over." The Zarian had returned, and they were not here for peace. They were here to conquer. No escape. The Vanguard shook violently as another barrage of Zaffiran energy beams struck its hull. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. The shields were barely holding, and the engines were struggling to push the ship away from the battle. "Shields down to 20%, Commander." Holt reported, her voice tense. If we take another direct hit, we're finished. Captain Darius Kane gritted his teeth. They had to escape. But the Zarian warship blocking their path was massive, its dark hull pulsing with unknown energy. It wasn't just a ship, it was a fortress. Divert all power to the engines, Darius ordered. If we can't fight, we fly. Lieutenant Go worked frantically at his console, engines at max output, attempting evasive maneuvers. The Vanguard twisted, sharply skimming the battlefield at incredible speed. But the Zarian were faster. Their ships moved with an unnatural grace, adjusting to every maneuver, cutting off every escape route. They're toying with us, Holt muttered. Darius knew she was right. The Zarian weren't in a hurry. They were hunting. A cold voice echoed over the comms. Your resistance is meaningless. Surrender now, and your extinction will be swift. Darius refused to give in. Not today, he growled. Then an idea struck him. Commander, do we still have torpedo armed? Holt's eyes widened. Yes, sir, but they won't get through their shields. They don't have to, Darius said. Target the debris field behind them. Ignite the wreckage. Holt understood instantly. The battlefield was littered with floating wreckage from destroyed ships. If they detonated the debris, it could create a shockwave powerful enough to throw off the Zarian fleet just long enough to escape blocking. Torpedoes on debris field. Vega called out. Fire. Darius commanded the torpedoes streak forward, slamming into the wreckage. A massive explosion erupted, sending fire and metal to debris crashing outward. The Zarian warships, caught in the blast, reeled back to their formations, breaking for the first time. This is our chance, Holt shouted. Punch it, Darius ordered. The Vanguard surged forward, engines screaming as it shot past the stunned Zarian fleet. The rift was closing behind them, but they had no time to look back. The enemy had arrived. The war had begun, and humanity's only hope was to survive. The warning. The Vanguard tore through space at maximum speed, its engines burning hot as it escaped the Zarian ambush. The ship was damaged badly, but it was still flying. Captain Darius Kane kept his eyes locked on the viewport, watching as the enemy fleet grew smaller behind them. The explosion had bought them time, but not much. The Zarian weren't just powerful. They were patient. They let us go, Commander, Holt said, voicing what everyone on the bridge was thinking. They could have chased us down. Why didn't they? Darius exhaled slowly. Because they don't need to. They know we'll bring the warning for them. They want humanity to know they're coming. A heavy silence filled the bridge. How long until we reached Terran command? Darius asked. 4 hours at this speed, Vega replied. But the ship struggling. The engines took a lot of damage in the fight. If we push too hard, they might fail completely. Darius clenched his jaw. Then we pushed them just enough. We have to reach command before it's too late. Holt nodded. I'll have the engineers stabilize the core. We can't afford to lose power now. As she left for the engine bay, the bridge crew worked quickly, repairing systems, rerouting energy, and scanning for any signs of pursuit. The Zarian weren't following yet, but the warning message they had received still see in their minds. Your resistance is meaningless. Surrender now, and your extinction will be swift. They weren't just facing a new enemy, they were facing an empire that had once ruled the stars, an empire that was returning to reclaim its throne. Darius leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. Humanity had spent centuries fighting among itself, waging wars over politics, power, and resources. But none of that mattered anymore, because now they were all in danger. Prepare a full battle report, he ordered. I want every detail ready for Terran High Command. If they don't take this threat seriously, it'll be the end of us. Vega nodded. Understood. Captain Darius turned his gaze back to the stars ahead. The Vanguard had escaped for now, but the next battle wouldn't be so easy, and this time the entire Terran fleet would have to fight for survival. The Council denial. The Vanguard limped into Terran Command's face. It tall, scorched, its energy reserves nearly depleted, but it had made it. Captain Darius Kane stood on the bridge, his jaw clenched as they approached Nova Prime. The heart of the Terran fleet, the planet-sized space station, loomed in the distance, a beacon of human power. Dozens of warships patrolled the perimeter, strong, disciplined, unprepared for what was coming. Incoming transmission, Vega announced. A sharp voice filled the bridge. This is Nova Prime. Command us. Vanguard, you are ordered to stand down and submit to debriefing. Your ship is damaged. Do you require assistance? Darius stepped forward. Negative, Command. I need An immediate audience with the High Council. We've encountered an unknown hostile force, an ancient empire known as the Zirian. They're coming, and they won't stop until we're wiped out. A brief silence, then proceed to docking bay 7. The council will hear your report. Darius exchanged a glance with Commander Holt. Let's hope they listen. Terran High Council chambers. Nova Prometha chamber was vast, filled with admirals, senators, and high-ranking officials. At the center sat the Supreme Chancellor, a woman known for her cold logic and firm rule. Darius stood before them, exhausted but unwiring. We barely escaped, he said, his voice steady. The Zarian aren't just a threat, they are an empire far beyond anything we've seen before. Their ships are faster, their weapons stronger, and their technology, it's like they were built for war. He paused, letting his words sink, and they demanded our surrender before even firing a shot. That means one thing: they don't see us as an opponent, they see us as prey. Murmurs spread across the room. Some faces showed concern, others doubt. Admiral Rains, an older officer with years of experience, folded his arms. An ancient empire returning from the void. You expect us to believe that based on one skirmish? Darius's fists clenched. I expect you to act before it's too late. Chancellor Vashi leaned forward. Captain Kane, do you have proof of their strength? Holt, standing beside him, activated a holo display footage from the Vanguard's battle play. Zirian warships emerging from the rift, their weapons tearing through shields like paper, the eerie red runes glowing across their halls. The warning message echoed in the chamber: you cannot run, you cannot hide. The age of Terran is over. Silence followed, then laughter. Senator Caldwell smirked. This is clearly a deception, a pirate faction, perhaps using experimental technology. Darius stepped forward. You think this is a joke? Look at our ship, we barely survived. The Chancellor sighed. Even if this threat is real, Captain, the Terran fleet is vast, no enemy can stand against us. Darius slammed his fist on the table. That's exactly what they want you to think. A heavy pause, then Chancellor Vashi leaned back, her expression unreadable. We will consider your warning. For now, you and your crew are ordered to remain on Nova Prime. The fleet will not be mobilized without further evidence. Darius stiffened. They weren't going to act. They were going to wait, and waiting meant death. As he turned to leave, Holt whispered, "What now?" Darius's eyes darkened. "If the council won't fight," he muttered, "then we find those who will, because war was coming and humanity wasn't ready. The resistance rises." Captain Darius Kane stormed out of the High Council chambers, frustration burning in his chest. The Vanguard had barely survived the Zarian assault, yet the leaders of humanity refused to act. They thought they were safe, they thought they had time. They were wrong, Commander. Holt caught up to him in the corridor. "So that's it, we wait until the Zarian are knocking on Nova Prime's front door." Darius's jaw tightened. "No, if the council won't fight, we will." She nodded, understanding his meaning instantly. "Who do we call?" Darius turned sharply down a side hallway leading toward the docking base. "There are still warriors out there, fighters who don't wait for orders. Mercenaries, smugglers, ex-soldiers, people who've seen the worst of the galaxy and survived. If we're going to stand a chance, we need them." Holt exhaled. "You're talking about the Ghost Fleet, aren't you?" Darius glanced at her. "You know them. Everyone's heard of them, a rogue fleet of exiled captains and war criminals, hiding in the outer colonies. No one knows if they're just a myth. They're real," Darius said, "and if anyone knows how to fight against an impossible enemy, it's them." Outer Rim Black Sky Station. A few days later, the Vanguard arrived at Black Sky Station, a lawless spaceport at the edge of Terran space. It was a place where the unwanted gathered: mercenaries, bounty hunters, smugglers. It hour of desperation and danger. As Darius and Holt stepped onto the main deck, dozens of eyes turned toward them. Some were curious, others were hostile. "This place feels like a death trap," Holt muttered. Darius smirked. "That's how you know you're in the right place." They moved through the crowded corridors until they reached the dimly lit bar. At the center sat a woman with cold blue eyes and a scar running down her cheek. Captain Adavox. Once she had been one of the Terran fleet's most feared strategists, until she defected, disappearing into the outer colonies with a fleet of stolen warships. Darius stepped forward. Adria, her eyes flicked up, unimpressed. "Kane, didn't think I'd see you again. You're either desperate Or stupid, both. Darius admitted. I need your help. Darius didn't hesitate. The Zarian have returned. They're bringing an empire with them. If we don't stop them now, we lose everything. Adria studied him. Then chuckled the Zarian. You expect me to believe that ancient ghost stories are real? Holtz stepped forward and activated a holo display showing footage of the battle. The eerie black warships, the red glowing runes, the message of doom. Adria's smirk. Fated son of a, she muttered. You weren't lying. She glanced at her crew, then at Darius. What do you need? Darius smiled. The council won't fight, he said, so we build a force of our own, the vanguard, the ghost fleet. Anyone willing to stand against them, we take the fight to the Zarian before they take it to us. Adria leaned forward, her grin returning a suicide mission. I like it. She turned to her crew. Get the fleet ready. We're going to war. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bright, deep within the void, the Zarian warships moved in perfect silence, their dark hulls absorbing all light. Inside the command ship, a towering figure stood before a glowing holographic map of the galaxy. His crimson eyes burned with an ancient hunger. The turn resist. One of his advisors said. The Zarian commander smiled. Let them. It will make their fall even more entertaining. With a wave of his hand, hundreds of warships surged forward toward Terran space. The invasion had begun. Preparing for war, the air in Black Sky Station was thick with tension. Word had spread fast. Captain Darius Kane was assembling a force to fight against an enemy no one had ever faced before. Some laughed at the idea, others listened, and a few were ready to fight. Inside an old war room, buried in the depths of the station, a plan was forming. Darius stood at the center of a holographic map, surrounded by Captain, a darker Vox commander, Holt, and a handful of the toughest captains and mercenaries the outer rim had to offer. Our window was closing, Darius said, pointing at the map. The Zarian fleet won't wait for us to be ready. When they strike, they'll hit hard and fast. We have to move now. Adria crossed her arms. We barely have a fleet. Kane, you've got the vanguard, I've got the ghost fleet, and a handful of independent warships. That's nothing against an empire. Darius met her gaze. We don't need to match them in numbers, we just need to hurt them, show them that humanity won't go down without a fight. A gruff voice cut in. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Darius turned to the speaker. Captain Thorne, a scared war veteran and leader of a notorious mercenary crew. He had fought in more battles than most, but even he looked uneasy at the thought of facing an ancient empire. Darius tapped the holo table. The map zoomed in on a region near the Zarian Rift. This, he said, is a Zarian forward outpost, a scouting station they've set up just outside the rift. If we hit it, we get intel, their fleet strength, their movements, and maybe even a way to slow them down. A draw. Smirk. You want to pick a fight with the enemy before they even come knocking? Exactly, Darius said. If we wait for them to bring the fight to us, we lose. We need to strike first, hit them hard, make them bleed. A murmur spread through the room. Some captains nodded in agreement, others looked doubtful. Holt, standing beside Darius, spoke up. The vanguard is ready. We're not asking you to throw yourselves into a losing battle, but if you want a chance at surviving what's coming, this is it. Captain Thorne let out a low chuckle. You're crazy, see, but I like crazy. He looked at his crew. We're in Adria. Grind fine. We'll hit their outpost. But if this goes south, I'm blaming you. Darius smiled. Wouldn't have it any other way. The resistance had begun. Meanwhile, on the Zarian command ship far beyond the breach, deep within Zarian-controlled space, a shadowy figure watched the hoe of displays with amusement. The invasion fleet was nearly ready. Soon the Terran worlds would burn. A smaller figure approached, bowing low. Supreme Commander, we have intercepted human transmissions. They are gathering forces to attack our forward outpost. The Supreme Commander smiled. Let them come. He turned to his fleet. Let them believe they have a chance, his crimson eyes claimed. And when they arrive, we will crush them. Back at Black Sky Station, Darius Kane stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, looking at the fleet assembled before him. It wasn't much, a handful of warships, fighters, and mercenaries, but it was a beginning. Set course for the Zarian outpost, he ordered. Hull nodded. Coordinates locked in. Adria's voice crackled over the comms. Let's give these ancient bastards a fight they won't forget. The engines roared to life. The fleet surged forward. The first battle was about to begin the first battle. The Vanguard and its Galactic fleets surged through the darkness of space, heading straight for the Zarian outpost. The tension on the bridge was thick. Every crew member knew this wasn't just an attack, it was a message. Captain Darius Kane stood firm, his eyes locked on the forward screen. The Zarian outpost was now in view, a dark station floating near the edge of the rift, surrounded by 3 enemy warships. Their hulls pulsed with eerie red energy, their weapons primed and ready. Multiple Zarian vessels detected. Vigo reported, "They've seen us." Hull turned to Darius. "No turning back now." Darius exhaled. "Then let's give them hell." He opened a fleet-wide comm channel. "This is Captain Kane. The Zarian think we're weak. They think we'll run. Let's show them what humans do when we're cornered. No mercy, no retreat. We hit hard and fast." A chorus of acknowledgments came through the makeshift fleet. Accelerated weapons charging. Aya's voice crackled through the comms, engaging on Mark Can. Darius's fists clenched. "Mark, the battle begins." The first volley of plasma torpedoes stray through space, slamming into the Zarian station's outer defenses. Explosions rippled across its surface. But the Zarian didn't flinch. Their warships reacted with terrifying speed. Red beams of energy lashed out, cutting through space with unnatural precision. One of the mercenary ships, the Ravager, took a direct hit. Its shields collapsed instantly, and the vessel erupted in a ball of fire. "Ravager is down." Vega shouted. Darius gritted his teeth. "Keep pushing forward. Target their lead ship." The Vanguard dove into the fray, pulse cannons blazing. A Dras ghost fleet flanked from the right, weaving through enemy fire with expert precision. "These bastards adapt fast." Holt warned, "Their shifting shield frequencies. Our weapons are losing effectiveness." Darius cursed. The Zarian weren't just strong, they were learning as they fought. "We need to outmaneuver them," he said. "Holt, take the Vanguard low under their firing arcs. Adria, see if your ships can bait them toward the debris field." "Copy that," Adria replied. "Let's make them chase us." The Ghost fleet peeled away, firing rapid bursts at the Zarian warships before pulling back toward a dense field of wreckage from past battles. The Zarian took the bait. Their lead warship surged forward, entering the Dace field with deadly intent. But Adria had planned for this. Now, she shouted. Hidden within the debris, several mines activated, sending a chain reaction of explosions through the field. The Zarian warship was caught in the blast, its fields failing as debris ripped through its hull. "We got one sheared," but there was no time to celebrate. "The other 2 are charging their weapons," Vega called out. "They're about to." A blinding beam of energy lanced out from the remaining Zarian ships, striking another allied vessel. The Storm Bureau, one of the independent warships, was disintegrated in seconds. Darius felt a pang of rage. They were losing ships too fast. "We need to take out that station," he growled. "Holt, prepare for a suicide run. If we can't break their formation, we smashed through it." Holt's eyes widened, but she nodded. "Aye, Captain." The Vanguard accelerated, heading straight for the Zarian station, cannons firing, engines burning, hot shields overloading. The Zarian reacted, but too late. The Vanguard smashed through the station's outer defenses, unleashing a final torpedo barrage directly into its core. The station exploded, sending shock waves across the battlefield. The 2 remaining Zarian warships faltered, momentarily disoriented by the destruction of their command post. Adria's voice cut through the comms. "That's our window. All ships hit them with everything you've got." The Rig fleet unleashed hell, plasma cannons, missile salvos, laser blasts. Every weapon fired at maximum power. The weakened Zarian ships struggled to counter the onslaught. Within minutes, one was destroyed. The other, crippled, silence fell over the battlefield. They had won, but at a heavy cost. Aftermath. The remaining ships regrouped. The battlefield was littered with wreckage, both Zarian and human. They had lost good people today, but they had done the impossible. They had defeated a Zarian force. Darius sat back in his chair, breathing heavily. Status report. Holt wiped sweat from her brow. "We lost 5 ships, 2 more heavily damaged. But we won, Sir." Adria's face appeared on the comm screen, a mix of exhaustion and triumph. "I'll be honest, Kane, I thought we were dead back there, but that was a hell of a fight." Darius exhaled. "It's just the beginning. They'll be back, And next time, they won't underestimate us. Adria smirked. Good, neither will we. As the Vanguard and its allies limped away from the battlefield, one thing was clear: humanity had struck. First, the Zirian knew they were not alone in this war. And next time the fight would be even bigger. The Empire strikes back. The battered remains of the Vanguard's fleet drifted in the aftermath of the battle wreckage, floated silently, the fires of destroyed ships flickering in the void. The cost had been high, but they had won for the first time. In history, humanity had defeated the Zirian, but Captain Darius Kane knew what came next. They won't let this go, he muttered, staring at the battlefield from the Vanguard's bridge. We humiliated them. The Zirian don't take humiliation lightly. Commander Holt, still catching her breath from the fight, nodded grimly. They'll send more ships, bigger ones, the full invasion force. Adria's voice crackled through the comms. Then we hit them first again, keep them off balance. Darius shook his head. We can't keep fighting like this. Every battle drains us. They have an empire, we have scraps. At heavy silence fell over the bridge. Everyone knew the truth. If the Zirian sent their full might, the resistance wouldn't survive the next fight. Vega, the comms officer, suddenly went pale. Captain, we have a problem. The entire bridge turned to him. Massive energy ratings detected. It's the rift. Vega said, voice shaking. It's expanding. Darius rushed to the view screen. The rift that had brought the Zirian back from the void was growing, its swirling edges crackling with violet energy, and then ships started emerging. 110 hundred Zafari warships poured into real space, their dark hulls gleaming. Under the distant stars at the center of the fleet, a monstrous dreadnought loomed. Easily 10 times the size of the Vanguard, its red runes pulsed like a living thing. The Supreme Commander had arrived. A deep, inhuman voice boomed across the fleet. Wide Khan's Tyan, you have made a mistake. You have defied the Zirian Empire. Now you will be erased. The Vanguard's bridge fell into stunned silence. The enemy wasn't just sending reinforcements. This was an extermination force. Holt whispered, we need to get out of here now. Darius clenched his fists. Retreat went against everything in his blood. But this wasn't a battle. This was a massacre waiting to happen. All ships fall back, he ordered. Full speed, get to hyperspace. Adria's fleet immediately began evasive maneuvers, their engines burning hot. But the Zirian fleet was already moving. Red energy beams lanced through space, tearing apart stragglers. 2 mercenary ships were vaporized instantly. We not fast enough. Vega yelled, they're cutting off our escape routes. Darius knew they had seconds to act. We need a distraction, he said. Something big. Holt's eyes widened. You're not seriously thinking about the Vanguard, are you? Darius looked around the bridge. His ship was crippled, barely holding together. If it stayed behind and fought while the others fled, maybe they'd have a chance. I am thinking about it, Darius admitted. A long pause. Then Adria's voice came through, quiet but firm. You're not dying today, Kane. Suddenly 2 of her ships, the Corsair and Shadowborn, broke formation, turning back toward the Zirian fleet. Adria, what are you doing? Darius demanded. Buying you time, she said. You're the one who started this fight. Make sure you finish it. The Corsair and Shadowborn launched a suicidal charge, weaving through enemy fire, unloading everything they had. At the Zirian fleet, explosions rippled across the void as the 2 ships slammed into the nearest Zirian battleship, taking it down in a massive fireball. It worked for a brief moment. The Zirian fleet hesitated. Now, Darius roared. The Vanguard and the remaining ships jumped into hyperspace, disappearing. Just as the Zirian unleashed hell on the battlefield, the resistance had escaped, but the war had truly begun. Meanwhile, on the Zirian dreadnought, the Supreme Commander watched as the Terran fled, his crimson eyes burning with amusement. They run like all weak species before them, one of his lieutenants vowed. Shall we pursue? The Supreme Commander turned to the rift. It was still growing, its energy unstable. No, he said, let them gather their forces. Let them believe they have hope. Hope makes the destruction so much sweeter. With a slow, deliberate motion, he raised his hand. The Zirian fleet turned, setting a new course. Their next target was clear. Nova Prime. The heart of humanity would burn, and this time there would be no escape.